Welcome to the show. Welcome to Crazy4crew. Today we have Angela O'Neill. She's been in the industry for a long time. She's a prop master, and she became a prop master when there were very few women in the industry that did that. So she's like a veteran in this field. We love that she's here. We really am glad that she came and take out her time to do this. We hope that if it's something you're interested in doing props, we hope that she answers all of your questions. We think she will. Enjoy the show. Coming, Angela.
Thank you, Diane.
It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm from Calistoga, California, in the beautiful Napa Valley in Northern California.
And what did you do before you got into the industry?
I went to high school. Yeah, I kind of started, went to UCLA as a transfer, but I graduated from high school at 15. So I took the GED, I went to junior college for a year, then I transferred to UCLA's theater program. So literally before I was in entertainment, I was in high school.
So you went right into the industry out of high school?
I just, there wasn't a theater program at the high school I went to. I knew I loved music, and I thought, well, maybe kind of theater and music combined kind of idea, since we had an awesome music program, but no theatrical, nothing stage, nothing like that in my high school.
You wanted to be an actor?
I knew I wanted to be involved in theater somehow, but I just didn't have any opportunities in the area that I was in. So my mom, luckily, is a free thinking kind of mom. And she was like, I think you could take the GED and get out of high school and kind of go somewhere where you can pursue those things. And I said, I think that sounds good. I don't think I want to stay those next 3 years and kind of figure out. I kind of know that I want to do something, music or stage or something involved in that area. And there just wasn't anything in my area to do that. I went to Santa Rosa Junior College for a year, kind of got my AP stuff out of the way. My family's not wealthy. My dad was a teacher.
What is AP stuff?
Advanced placement.
Okay.
Yeah. So the stuff that you have to do to get through college, English and, the basics, basically. Okay. And I think for people who are not wealthy, like my family wasn't, it's a good economic choice to go and get that stuff out of the way to junior college. Mm-hmm. And then transfer to a college that's more specialized, like UCLA was. Mm-hmm. But it's enormously expensive. Mm-hmm. So rather than putting yourself in debt for 4 years, you're only putting yourself in debt for 3 years or 2 years as a transfer. I did study acting at UCLA. I went through their acting program, and I randomly went to an audition that someone, like another friend, was going to, and I was like, oh, I'll tag along. And it was for a cult Roger Corman slasher movie called Sorority House Massacre. And I was out in the waiting room, and they said, do you want to audition? And I said, oh, no, I'm not really. And they said, no, what do you want? And I was like, okay, whatever. And I thought, okay, so I've never seen a horror movie. It's kind of not my thing. What do they do in horror movies? Okay, they scream. So I looked through the sides and I was like, I'm gonna scream right there. And I really had at it. I scared everyone in the room. And they cast me. So in Sorority House Massacre, that was my intro to film. I'd never been on a film set. I didn't know anything about anything. And I just was like, well, I don't see why I shouldn't audition. That's fine, whatever, it's a non-union movie. And then that was the first time I was on a film set. It seems strange, but actually it's a pretty weirdly logical transition. Prop people work very much in tandem with actors. We make choices about characters with actors that affect how that character goes for the actor during the course of the movie. And the prop people are a part of the through line. I mean, one of the things that's difficult for actors is that we don't shoot films and television chronologically. So for them to hold on to their through line as a character is more difficult. But things like watches and their notebook and their glasses ground them in the reality of that character. So when they see me coming with the things that go with that character, right? Mm-hmm. They know, oh, my day is starting as an actor. So I think a lot of actors are really dependent on their props. And when I did theater, pretty much you do your own props in theater. So it was kind of a natural kind of thing. I started started working in the art department as an art department coordinator. And then I thought, oh, props is kind of interesting because they're dealing with the actors and stuff. Well, that's a long story, but basically I wanted to work behind the camera as well. Like I always enjoyed being an actor, but I was really fascinated by the crafts. I remember I was sitting in a chair one day on set and everybody was so like busy doing their stuff on set. And I thought, what does every single person here do? Like I was really curious what filmmaking actually was. And I won't speak for everyone in this, but as an actor, you don't really have a very big window into those crafts. I was just really curious. So I started working as a PA basically like forever because I needed money and I wasn't getting some acting gigs. And I was like, well, I'll just supplement my income with some PA work. And then, I worked really hard and I was really curious about the filmmaking process. Then I went on to the next and the next and kind of here I am. It was kind of a natural transition for me. I didn't quit acting. That wasn't my source of income anymore. So I kind of went where the money was. I was like, and plus I love filmmaking. To me, even though I don't think everyone feels this way about it, felt the same to me as acting. I did anything and everything. I think my first PA jobs were through Transpo. Transportation needed non-union drivers who could drive actors on occasion. And so then I would be on set and I would be like, what do you need? What do you need? How can I help? And so I ended up working for those Transpo guys for a little while. And then I would be on set, you're there for 14 hours, you chit chat with people and people are like, oh, you know what? My friend is looking for a blah, blah on the next show. And that's kind of how it is. I mean, I think the key is to just be relaxed and comfortable on set. So you can have conversations with people who you have a natural affinity with. The first movie I ever worked as an assistant prop person was A Few Good Men. And I was actually going into the Transpo department, which was at Culver Studios, which is no longer there anymore. And it happened that Transpo was in the front of the office and the prop people were kind of in the back. And so I came in, I was talking to an amazing driver who I think has left us now. His name was James Brown. And I said, James Brown, do you have any PA? I came to see someone else and drop off my resume and I want to see him too. I said, do you need drivers on this one? And Jerry Moss, also departed now, but very famous prop master, said, hey, do you need a gig? And I said, yeah, I'm looking for any kind of work. And he said, can you type? And I said, I sure can. And so basically he hired me, probably moved that next week or something. I typed on an old typewriter that was period correct for A Few Good Men, all of the military paperwork. I sat every day. I had all the information on the case and I typed thousands of documents for Jerry Moss and Kenny Peterson, who were the prop master and assistant on that show. And so I ended up working with them for weeks and weeks. And then when they started their next one, which was another Rob Reiner movie called North, they called me back and they said, hey, do you want a PA again? I said, oh, yes, I definitely do. And little by little, just, at Local 44, certainly, I think prop people are always kind of wanting to pass on their knowledge. So if you're willing and you can take criticism, which you'll need to do, and take corrections and redirection. Because a lot of times when you're young, I think you feel like you're right about things, but you're not. So I think you need to be able to take people telling you the correct way to do things and be able to take that direction. It's difficult for people, I think. Sometimes when you're young, you feel like you want to take over the world and you got it all, the tiger by the tail. But the truth is there's a lot of knowledge. And I took that knowledge from Jerry happily and took the direction. It wasn't always easy. I mean, you have to get your ego out of the way. But I think that at that time, when I first met him, I actually didn't know how incredibly famous he was. Because all of Rob Reiner's movies, all of Tim Burton's movies, he was absolutely maybe one of the premier prop masters ever. And I just was lucky, and again, there's an element of luck, but there's also an element of, I just kept putting myself out there without getting bitter or getting, like, oh my God, why am I going to get the job I deserve? None of that. There was none of that. I was really happy to be working for Transpo. I was grateful grateful the transpo guys, which there are very few women in that department, would hire me to be a PA driver at that time, and kind of put up with having me around, honestly, because they, want to talk about their guy things and I want you around to witness it.
Right.
But they were really kind to me and gave me a lot of opportunities. And that then gave me the opportunity to get into props by chance. So then, it just was one movie to the next as a PA. And then the next thing I did was product placement coordinating. So it wasn't like, oh, props and I'm on my way. I product placement coordinated for a couple of bigger features.
So what's the difference between coordinating and what you were doing before?
I was kind of doing some product placement while I was PAing. It's one of those things that you have to deal with in props, but it's very time inefficient. And so it's something you might assign to somebody like, hey, make these phone calls, make sure all these people have the script, get their list of products they want to place on this show, and then I'll go through them once you're at that stage, right? So it was on the next movie, which was called North. Actually, the set decorator said, we have a empty department store that we need filled with product. Please find $1 million worth of product to put in this and have the people send it for free. And I was like, okay. So basically I did. But basically product placement is, the company gets the brand identification and we get the products to use on camera. It's a part of props. I didn't know at the time that was kind of a really helpful tool to have for the future. And those relationships, that's a long time ago now. I still work with those people now. To this day, the very same people. They may have moved from different companies and stuff, but those same product placement people are still in the business now, and that's 1,000 years later. If you're on a big movie like a Rob Reiner movie, someone within the company, scripts are protected. So you have to go through the process of negotiating with whoever it is who's distributing scripts, making sure they get a watermark script to the person who it's going to, because all of it's protected, and so you have to deal with the security part of it. And then you have to follow up with either it's a product placement company that represents some product, or you're going directly to the publicity person, promo person within whatever. We had to do grandfather clocks. So I called 1 million grandfather clock producing companies and just said, hey, who's your promo person? Got that person's name, got them a script, followed up with them, stalked them until they gave me free things. So product placement's a really good way to kind of learn how to negotiate with people, but also it helps a lot to have an amazing cast. Because people a lot of times are like, we're doing A Few Good Men. It is Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. And they're like, oh, really? Oh, we would like to be in that movie. Yeah.
So how did you go from assistant props to becoming a prop master?
Not very easily, I have to say. Jerry was an amazing mentor to me. And then I also had 2 or 3 other mentors, male mentors, who helped me along the way, gave me opportunities, and taught me how to do this. On the other side of it, I just certainly had peers and also people who were older than me who said, look, honestly, you're a girl, you'll never be a prop master. Don't bother trying for that. Be an assistant. It's going to be amazing for you. And I was like, well, that is so nice. Thank you so much for your advice. And so basically I worked non-union features as an assistant. And then I got into the union on Tracy Takes On with Kenny Peterson, the assistant from A Few Good Men. So it's a very small circle. That turned. So we were on a non-union show, and the show, about halfway through shooting, the union came in and unionized the show. And the show then turned union, and I became union as the show did.
And you became union as what at that point?
Assistant props.
Assistant props.
Yeah. And it's a different card to be a prop master. So you actually have to either be on another show that turns union or get enough hours to become a prop master. So then I worked a bunch of non-union movies as a prop master. At the same time, I was working set dressing a lot of the time. I worked Godzilla as a set dresser. If you remember that big movie back in the day, just carrying heavy things around and moving furniture. And that was a great lesson in a lot of ways that helped me learn how to manage a department and do all that kind of stuff. And then I was on another movie in Las Vegas, actually, that also then turned union, called Top of the World. And it shot in Vegas non-union, and when it came back to Los Angeles, it went union. The union turned it. And then I became a prop master.
And at that point, did you do nothing but prop master movies?
Oh, no, not at all. No, not at all. No. I mean, it's so hit or miss. It's a thing when you're making that transition. As you work as a PA, even if you're on bigger shows, there's a transition where people still see you as a PA, and they will not employ you in the job that you'd like to have for a period of time. And so there's kind of there's going to be down times where you have to go do set dressing, or you have to do assisting, you have to do whatever to fill the time while you tell people, hey, I have a kit and have a truck, and that's where actually the mentors come into. Like, I worked for a gentleman named Alan Gordon, whose dad and grandfather were both prop masters. And for some reason, he kind of adopted me. I was a really hard worker, and I wanted to learn all the amazing stuff. He's an armorer and a carpenter and all this stuff, and he was willing to teach me. So he hired me as assistant. He kind of taught me how to do a lot with guns, and then he also taught me a lot of carpentry and stuff, which is so helpful in props. You can't believe how helpful that is. And then as I started prop mastering, because he was like, kind of older at that point, he was like, oh, honey, prop mastering is exhausting. So I started prop mastering and I rented his truck. So it kind of became a transition, I was prop mastering because I had all the energy to run around and, get beat up. And he wanted to just do the guns or whatever. And so he just did the armory and I rented his truck. And so everybody kind of won. And at the same time, I had somebody there. If I had a question about something, I'd go, hey, Alan, how do you do blah, blah, blah? What's the best way to do blah, blah, blah? And he was there with me so he could help me solve some of those problems. It really depends what you want to do. Because my initial background was in feature films, I think for the most part in features, you have to have a kit. And for the most part, a truck. And the reason is, I did a movie last year called Nate and Gigi that's coming out this Labor Day. Is that the next holiday? And we shot here for 6 weeks, and then we went to Charlotte in North Carolina and shot for another 6 or 8 weeks. So my truck went across country with all the props for the show. And typically that's what features do. You travel a little bit, you need to have everything with you. So you pretty much need to have a kit full of props. And yes, you do purchase those yourself at some point. You just kind of have to cough up the cash and hope. Which is what I did. And the same thing with the truck. I rented a truck for a super long time until I was in a stage where I was on a television show for a little longer. So I invested in the truck, just kind of emptied out my bank account so that I could have it in the future. That's an interesting question. For me, I still read a script like I'm an actor, I think. So for me, I try to I read the script. I try to kind of figure out, okay, who's the most high maintenance character in the script? Who is the proppiest, let's say. And then I'll hopefully meet with the production designer. Props is kind of a weird position because you work in tandem with the production designer, but technically don't work for them. And the same with the director, and the same with the producers, and the same with costume, and the same with everyone. You kind of work in hand with them. And so there's a lot of communication, a lot of teamwork, a lot of all of those things that has to kind of go into figuring out how you're going to approach a script. But obviously, the script is your first priority. If I go in my first day, it's about setting up my office so I have a way to print photos. So somebody's like, hey, you know what? We just thought of this great thing we'd love to put in the script. Can you find something like this? I need to be able to put together a little something for them to take a look at what the possibilities might be, as an example. By the time I come on, I'm kind of late in the game. The production designer's probably been on for 6 or 8 weeks on a movie. I would say they have a lot of needs by that time. They've been waiting for me and talking what the props are for 8 weeks. So when I arrive, they all descend on me with their list of desires. And so I have to be ready basically to kind of work with what everybody has been thinking they want in props. It depends on your relationship with all of those people I just named, Yeah. If you have a great relationship with the director, they're like, I want to Chingus, I don't know, go bring me some options. They trust your eye. They know you'll find something that's appropriate. And it depends on your relationship with the production designer as well. One of the things that's always interesting process is trying to design, as an example, graphics. On Nate and Gigi, we had to design a to-go thing of chicken. So we have to have a non-brand name chicken because the setting wasn't appropriate for product placement, let's put it that way. And I literally went through like 15 iterations of the graphics for the production designer. For whatever reason, it just didn't look right to her. And so, it depends on the thing you're doing, and also that person's perception of, that one that they have at, the prop house just doesn't look right to me. Can we do this or that or the other? And sometimes it's just, you have to be really patient with the process sometimes. I think the best way that I can figure it out, and my set decorating friends and I go kind of back and forth with this on every show and every set, is kind of a, hey, are you handling this? So we do check in all the time. There's no tried and true way of figuring it out. But I always say, if you walked into a room and you had your bag on your shoulder and you had your coffee cup in your hand, you had your watch on your wrist, those are your props. The thing the person walks in with, and then the things that have function. If they walk up to a laptop and they start working on their laptop, that's a prop. So things that are associated more with character are really a prop. And the things that kind of would exist in that room if you walked in, your chair, your sofa, your picture, all of that, that's all gonna be set deck. Well, interestingly enough, during COVID, I had a little off time, and I started a Zoom that I do every month that is kind of about helping people like that try to find their way into the film world. And there's a couple of systems. One is called Streetlights, that's more for like high school kids that are wanting to transition into a vocation in film. There's another one that's more oriented toward people who are more disenfranchised. In other words, like, I think culturally speaking, a lot of people don't know about the like middle class crafts that exist in filmmaking. So they think, well, you have to be a producer and you'll never succeed as a producer, so you should just do something else. But they don't know that there are middle class like jobs like this, where you can earn a living. You're not going to be rich and famous, but you're going to earn a living, and it's, and you can have a great time at it and make movies. So there's another system called Hollywood CPR, which is, I think it's hollywoodcpr.com or .org. And that's a great place for people who are coming into town who don't really know anything about the system. That's a 2 or 3 year vocational program. Teaches you how to be on set, teaches you what to look for, helps you figure out what department you might be appropriate for, all of that stuff. I have a Zoom that's online that's called the Unaffiliated Property Craftsperson Zoom. And it's really for some of the older prop masters to kind of pass on the information to people who might be wanting to get into props. Yeah, actually it's set deck, special effects, greens, assistant props, and prop masters, and I'm forgetting construction. I think in general, my path, I only know my path really is I worked in non-union for a time, and those shows turned union. I picketed and struck, and I don't know I was really that lucky, but sure. Also, the years in between me actually wanting to go union and becoming union are not that lucky. It wasn't overnight. So yeah, that's the way I did it.
But are there so many hours you can put in on non-union and then you can become union?
No.
No?
No, I think there are other ways. I mean, people should call Local 44 to find out exactly what the ways are that they can do that. I wouldn't want to speak on exactly, Local 44 is always doing outreach to try and make it easier, but also represent the people who are already in the union sufficiently. And it is a big union, Local 44. And it's not that easy to get into. So, yeah. I think the reason for the difficulty is that I think doing the job is actually difficult. I think it's physically demanding. I think it's psychologically demanding. I think it's emotionally demanding. And I'm not certain that everybody is actually the right fit for filmmaking. I mean, for me, I always remind myself, I'm here to serve. It's not about my ego. It's not about, getting a pat on the back, really. I'm a service person. That is my job. To serve the camera, to feed the camera what it needs, to serve the actors so they have a safe space to work in. So I need to kind of adjust my behavior based on what they need. I mean, really, to be in service is really a great position, I think, to operate within to do props. I think globally that it is difficult, unionism in general. And I think that corporate America and global corporations fight people being in unions. And as a result, the unions, are only as strong as how much people support them. I think it's difficult for the unions to survive these days. But yes, I mean, the things that people take for granted, I think, in union is you're not fighting for those hours working until dawn. You're not fighting for safety on set. You have the right to call and tell people at the union that you feel unsafe and there are unsafe practices happening. And they will come and show up and defend you and be your intermediary with the producers. You have healthcare that is part of the package that goes with being a union employee. And there's a multitude of ways that we're supported by the union. That's just some of them.
All right. Well, it was so nice of you to come. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think you're going to help a lot of people.
I hope so.
You know?
Yeah, okay. I hope so.